CSSBattle Target 6. This is Missing Slice. So here is our UI that we'll be building out with HTML and CSS on the left panel code editor here, and we will check our output to see what it looks like as we code it out. And of course our goal is to turn this into reality. So how do we do that? Well, before we jump into the actual code bit of it, which is the exciting part, I know, let's talk about how we even want to start with this. Like, how do we even, let's break this down a bit, right? So, just like with any other videos that I do, I think most of our videos has this container on the outside, which is this red background here, reddish background. It's sort of like the container or body that represents everything that is basically sitting inside it. So we have, it looks like a circular element that's sort of going on, but it's not necessarily that, because even if we turn this into a circle, it's kind of hard to pinpoint to each section here and change its background. So it's not going to be as easy, at least in my, how I'm sort of looking at it, is it's not going to be as easy as just creating a circle of certain width and height, and maybe add different background colors. Maybe there's a way to do that, but how I am thinking about doing it is you could have three separate parts. So this one, we can probably build this one out first, and then we can do something similar, but it would be sort of, it just probably can be like rotated a bit, or rather, maybe not rotated, like maybe like copied or transformed based on the y-axis here in the middle somewhere. So, and of course this will follow the same pattern. So we have three different shapes that have very similar pattern, if not the same pattern, and with different colors, but they're just positioned at different spots. So we'll start with one, and then we will try to make the other two following similar patterns, like rotating or some sort of a transform happening. Okay, that's enough talking. Let's go ahead and jump into the actual code. So as with any of the other videos, I'll go ahead and clean up a lot of these comments that we have here. We have our style block here. I'll leave it empty, keep it empty. Here's our HTML, here's our CSS. So of course we'll have our container first. So here's my div, that is my container. Here's the container, and inside the container we'll have three separate elements, which is this yellow-ish looking block here, then the green one, and then the white one. So we'll have three separate children inside the container. Sometimes I like to style the container first, but in this example, let's go ahead and build out the HTML, and then we'll target each classes separately and build them up one by one. So the very first one is, let's say, this YOLO block here. So I'll call this YOLO block. Probably could have named it a slightly better way, but I'll keep it a YOLO block for now, since I'm differentiating these things by color. So this is the first one. I'm going to copy the other two just like that, and this one's going to be the green block, and the last one is going to be the white block. Great. So let's start with the container. That's the easy one. We're going to target the container class here. We're going to give it a width of 100 view width. So I want you to take up the whole width of the current view, and we're going to do the same thing for the height as well. So it's going to be 100 view height, and we'll give it a background color of reddish somewhat. Awesome. We've seen this issue in multiple other videos as well with any of the CSSBattle series. What I tend to do is target every element that we have and make sure we don't have any browser default styles that are being set. So I set the margin and padding to 0, and of course, as you can see, that problem goes away, and we'll give it a box sizing of border box. Great. Now let's go ahead and build out this YOLO block here. So we'll target the YOLO block by class. And so how do we build this part out? So what does this really look like? If we think about it, it sort of looks like maybe, this is gonna be interesting. So it looks like, yeah, so it looks like maybe the border here. So first of all, we have a curved border for this, right? So on the top right border, if you think about it, if this was like a squarish, we have some sort of a border radius that's been applied to the top right border of this square, so it looks like it's curved. I think that's how we would probably build this one out. So we'll start with a maybe rectangular, or maybe it's like a square. I think it's a square, and then we'll apply a border radius to the top right border. So great. Let's go ahead and create this block. First of all, it has a width of, I don't know, maybe 100 pixels. Let's say the height of course 100 pixels because it's square, and we'll give it a background color so we can actually see it. And this is a background color yellow here. I think it's this color here. Awesome. And let's give it a border top radius, top right radius of 50%. Ooh, not quite. Interesting. So it's maybe not the same idea as like just a top radius. What if we turn this into, what if we give it a border radius of 100 pixel? There we go. Okay. Now it looks more like how we want it to look. Great. Awesome. So that part is done. Now the question is, how do we move this to the center here? So one way we could do it is, it seems like it's sort of centered horizontally, but it's centered based on this position here. So what we could do first is that let's just move it to the center by using a relative position and absolute positioning connection. So we'll have this container have a relative positioning, and we'll have we'll turn this into this shape only specifically to have a position absolute. So it is centered based on, sorry, it is centered relative to the container. So we'll target this container first, give it a position of relative to say that there's going to be other elements that are going to be positioned based on this container. And we'll target this YOLO block, come back here and add a position absolute, which won't really change anything. It will just sit up top here, but we can use the top and left properties now on this YOLO block to position it inside this container here. So we'll add a top property of 50%. So basically saying move this down 50% of the entire container. And we will also move this to the left by 50%. Cool. Everything's looking good. In fact, I think almost every bit of it is good, except we maybe just have to move it up by the same amount as the height of this element, which I think is set to 100 pixels. So one thing we could do is we could use the transform property here and say, I want you to move translate y. Basically, I want you to move up the move up vertically in the y-axis. That's why we use the y here. And I want you to move up by negative 100 pixels. Cool. So we are exactly at where we should be. Great. Now we do the same thing for the green part. So how do we do that? Well, we can copy the green block here. And really, I'll just copy over everything for the most part. Let me copy over the whole thing. And looks good so far, except what happened here. Well, we did not apply position absolute is also there. So that's weird. Why didn't it position it properly? Because I would assume it would have the same styling as the YOLO block. Interesting. Well, that's interesting. First of all, let's use the background so we can differentiate the two. So coming back to the green block here, change the background color to this. Looks like this. Okay. Okay. So looks like, I'm actually not sure why that is like that. I would sort of expected this to have the same, be positioned at the same spot as the yellow one. Yeah, I don't quite know. Let's see. Okay, that's fine. We have an absolute position here, top left 50%. Okay, so let's do one by one. Maybe it'll be best to do it one by one. So first of all, let's give it a width of 100 pixel. Give it a height of 100 pixel. And we'll add a background, not a backdrop, rather a background color of the screen color here. And it is positioned here. That is weird. Okay. Okay, alright. We'll give this one, okay, this one will have a slightly different border radius because remember this one's left radius is what we want to apply the border radius to on the left side. So we'll add this same thing here, but we'll do top left radius. So it does the left side here. There we go. Okay. And then, oh, I know why. Okay, so this part is good. Now, this is looking good, but all we want to do now is move this to the side a bit, or to the left side a bit so it positions properly. So we should move it over the same as the width here, but not the height. So what we're going to do is we can say, it's interesting, it's positioning this element based on the yellow block, which I did not, oh, I know why, because we did not close this div. That explains a lot. So we'll go ahead and make sure this HTML is set properly first. See, this is where it's important that you close the div blocks correctly, div tags correctly. So let me change that. So now everything is relative to the container and not the elements that are siblings of the rest of the elements. So cool. So now let me go ahead and copy over this whole thing again and paste it right here. Now we should see an overlap here. That's why you really can't see the difference except the background color. If I change the background color again for this green block, you might see that it's overlapping. Now we don't want to keep it like this because again the border radius should be applied to the left. So I'll come back here to the border top and right radius. I'm going to change this to border top left radius. And there it is. And we want to move this to the left by the same amount as the width of this element, which again is the same as the height of 100 pixels. So I'm going to come back here. Now, again, this one is moving, this one got shifted up a bit, which is fine, but we also want to shift it to the left a bit as well. So because we want to include both Y and, basically we want to update both Y and X axis for this. So I'll change this translate Y to just translate and make sure this one has, let's say we'll start with 0 for now. And we'll add the negative 100 pixels. And we'll change the left one to a negative 100 pixels as well. And there we have it. Great. This one's looking good. Now let's go ahead and do the last part, which is this white block here. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy over the whole CSS again with the green block, but for this one we want to apply to the white block here. Give it the same width and height. Everything is looking good. Change the background color to this. Going to copy this color here. And there it is. Just setting exactly what we want it to. But now what we want to do is we actually want to apply it to the bottom left. If you think about this shape has a bottom left, and this bottom left has a border radius. So I'm going to add a border bottom left radius. And there we go. It looks weird, but all you have to do now is shift it down a bit. So one thing we can do, let's just see what it looks like without any kind of transformation first. So it looks like this. So from here, it looks like we should have to shift it to the left a bit. That's all. So we're going to go ahead and add the transform property again. And because we don't really need any kind of vertical shifts going on, we just want to apply the translate X in here. And we want to say apply the same as the width of this element, which is about 100 pixels. So move it to the left by 100 pixels, so it's negative 100 pixels. And there we have it. So each block really just have very similar CSS, except it just has different positioning, which we achieved through something called transforms here. So that is pretty much going to cover the whole thing. I think this looks exactly how it's supposed to. Let's click on the diff checker here. There we go. It looks nice. Everything matches. Here's our HTML. Here's your CSS. Everything is cleaned up. Let's go ahead and submit it. Sweet. We get 100% match. Awesome. So that is Missing Slice for you. Thanks, guys.